The plane's engines roared, but my heart screamed louder. I stood in the crowded JFK terminal, clutching a one-way ticket to Boston, my life unraveling like a cheap sweater. Ellie was back in New York, and I was about to marry someone else to save my family. My name is Mia Carter, 28, a barista with dreams bigger than my paycheck. I grew up in a small Brooklyn apartment where love was plenty, but money was a ghost. My mom's medical bills had piled up like autumn leaves, and my little brother's college fund was a pipe dream. So when Victoria Langston, a 35-year-old real estate mogul, offered me a deal, marry her for a year, and she'd clear our debts, I said yes. It wasn't love. It was survival. But Ellie, my first love, my wildfire, had other plans. 2 years ago, Ellie Morgan, 30, left me to chase her art career in Paris. She was all passion, dark eyes that saw through me, hands that painted my soul on canvas. We'd spent nights tangled in her tiny Greenwich Village studio, whispering futures we couldn't afford. But ambition pulled her away, and I stayed behind, nursing a broken heart. Now she was back, her plane landing just as I was set to board mine. Her text burned in my pocket. Mia, don't do this. I'm here. We need to talk. I stood frozen, travelers rushing past like a river around a stone. My phone buzzed again. Victoria, checking if I'd landed in Boston for our engagement dinner. Her world was polished marble and private jets. Mine was cracked linoleum and instant coffee. I'd agreed to her proposal because it was logical, a lifeline for my family. But Ellie's return was a spark in a dry forest. I met Victoria 6 months ago, at the cafe where I worked. She'd stride in, all sharp suits and sharper smiles, ordering a double espresso with a side of charm. She was magnetic, older, confident, her blonde hair always perfect, her voice low and commanding. One day, she left a tip bigger than my rent and a note. Let's talk business, Mia. Over dinner at a rooftop restaurant, she laid it out, marriage for a year, a contract, no strings. In return, my mom's treatments, my brother's tuition, and a fresh start for us all. I'd be her wife in name, her arm candy at galas, nothing more. I signed the papers, ignoring the hollow ache in my chest. But Ellie's text changed everything. I could still feel her laugh, her warmth, the way she hummed off-key while cooking. I'd spent 2 years trying to forget her, but love doesn't vanish. It buries itself, waiting. Now, she was here and I was caught between duty and desire. I dragged my suitcase to a corner of the terminal, my heart pounding. I called Ellie. Where are you? I asked, voice shaking. Outside baggage claim, she said, breathless. Mia, I know about the deal. Don't go to Boston. Please. How do you even know? I snapped, though my anger was thin, cracking under the weight of her voice. Your brother told me. He said you're sacrificing everything. Mia, you don't love her. It's not about love, I hissed, glancing around as if Victoria could hear. It's about my family. You left, Ellie. You don't get to show up now and judge. I'm not judging, she said softly. I'm fighting. For us. I hung up, my hands trembling. I had 10 minutes before my flight boarded. I could stay, see Ellie, risk everything. Or I could go, keep my promise, save my family. The terminal spun around me, a kaleidoscope of strangers and choices. I thought of my mom, frail in her hospital bed, smiling despite the pain. My brother, 18, with his nerdy glasses and dreams of MIT. They needed me. But Ellie's face, those eyes, that reckless hope, clawed at my resolve. I grabbed my bag and ran toward baggage claim. Ellie stood there, her black hair loose, her leather boots scuffed from travel. She was real, not a memory, and the sight of her hit me like a wave. Mia, she said, stepping closer, her voice a mix of relief and fear. You came? I shouldn't have, I said, but my feet didn't move. Why are you here, Ellie? Why now? Because I never stopped loving you, she said, her eyes locked on mine. And I can't let you throw your life away. I wanted to scream, to kiss her, to run. Instead, I stood there, caught in the gravity of her. My phone buzzed. Victoria again. I silenced it. I have to go, I said, but my voice cracked. This isn't a fairy tale, Ellie. This is my family. Then let me help, she said, grabbing my hand. Her touch was electric, familiar. We'll find another way. Together. I pulled back, my chest tight. There is no other way. Victoria's deal is my only shot. Ellie's face hardened. She's buying you, Mia. That's not a marriage. That's a cage. You don't know her, I said, though doubt crept in. Victoria was kind, generous even, but there was a coldness to her, a calculation. Ellie was chaos, but she was mine. I know you, Ellie said, and I know you're not hers. The airport speaker crackled, announcing my flight. I had to choose Boston, Victoria, my family's future, or Ellie, New York, and a love that might burn us both. I stared at Ellie, her words echoing in the hollow of my chest. The airport's chaos faded, announcements, footsteps, rolling suitcases, until it was just us, two women standing on the edge of something irreversible. My phone vibrated again, Victoria's name flashing like a warning. I can't do this here, I said, my voice low, almost drowned by the terminal's hum. Ellie, you don't understand what's at stake. Then make me understand, she said, stepping closer, her breath warm against the cold air. Walk away from this, Mia. Come with me. We'll talk, figure it out. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But the weight of my mom's hospital bills, my brother's future, pressed down like a vice. I shook my head, backing away. I'm boarding that plane. Don't follow me. Her face crumpled, but she didn't move. I turned and walked toward the gate, each step heavier than the last. The terminal blurred through tears I refused to let fall. I handed my boarding pass to the agent, her smile too bright for the storm inside me. On the plane, I sank into my seat, staring out at the tarmac. Ellie's words, "She's buying you," looped in my mind. Was she right? Was I selling my soul for security? The flight to Boston was short, but every minute felt like a lifetime. I tried to picture Victoria's world, her penthouse, her galas, her life where money solved everything. But all I saw was Ellie's face, her eyes pleading in the baggage claim. When the plane landed, a sleek black car waited for me, Victoria's driver holding a sign with my name. I was stepping into her world now, no turning back. Victoria's estate was a sprawling mansion outside Boston, all glass and stone, like something from a magazine. She greeted me at the door, her blonde hair swept up, her navy dress hugging her frame. "Mia," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You look exhausted."
Come in.
She led me to a dining room that could have fit my entire apartment. Crystal chandeliers glinted above a mahogany table set for two. "I'm glad you're here," she said, pouring wine. "Tomorrow's the engagement party. You'll meet my circle, investors, partners. They'll love you." I nodded, forcing a smile. The food was exquisite, seared scallops, truffle risotto, but it tasted like ash. Victoria talked about our schedule, the prenup, the optics of our marriage. It was all so clinical, like I was a prop in her empire. "You're doing a noble thing," she said, her green eyes studying me. "Your family's lucky to have you." "They are," I said, my voice flat. I thought of my mom, her tired smile when I'd visit her in the hospital. I thought of my brother, his goofy grin when he got into MIT. This was for them. But Ellie's voice kept creeping in. "That's not a marriage. That's a cage." After dinner, Victoria showed me to a guest suite, all plush carpets and floor-to-ceiling windows. "Get some rest," she said, her hand brushing my arm. There was warmth in her touch, but it wasn't Ellie's. Alone, I sat on the bed, pulling out my phone. Ellie had texted again. "I'm not giving up on you. I'm in Boston. Tell me where you are." My heart lurched. She'd followed me. I typed a reply, "Stop, Ellie. This is my choice." But didn't send it. Instead, I stared at the ceiling, torn between duty and the pull of a love I'd never shaken. The next morning, the engagement party loomed. Victoria's stylist arrived, dressing me in a sleek emerald gown that cost more than my rent. I barely recognized myself in the mirror, polished, poised, a stranger. The party was at a downtown Boston hotel, a glittering affair of champagne and power players. Victoria was in her element, her arm around me, introducing me as her fiancé. I smiled, played the part, but every laugh felt like a lie. Then I saw her, Ellie, standing across the ballroom, her black dress simple but striking, her eyes locked on me. She'd snuck in, God knows how. My breath caught. Victoria's hand tightened on my waist. "Who's that?" she asked, her voice cool. "No one." I lied, my pulse racing. Ellie moved toward us, weaving through the crowd, her expression fierce. I excused myself, meeting her halfway, pulling her into a quiet corner. "What are you doing here?" I whispered, my voice shaking with panic and something else, relief. "I told you," she said, her eyes blazing. "I'm fighting for you. You don't love her, Mia. I see it in your face." "This isn't about love," I snapped, glancing back at Victoria, who was watching us. "You can't just crash my life like this." "Then tell me to leave," she said, stepping closer. "Look me in the eyes and say you don't love me." I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Her presence was a current, pulling me under. Victoria approached, her smile tight. "Mia, care to introduce your friend?" The air in the ballroom thickened, chandeliers casting fractured light across Ellie's defiant stare and Victoria's icy composure. My heart pounded like a drum, caught between the woman I was promised to and the one I couldn't forget. "She's an old friend," I said, my voice barely steady. "Ellie, this is Victoria." Ellie extended a hand, her smile sharp. "Nice to meet the woman who thinks she can buy Mia's heart." Victoria's eyes narrowed, but her smile didn't falter. "Charming," she said, shaking Ellie's hand briefly. "Mia, we have guests to attend to." Her tone was a command, her fingers grazing my elbow, steering me away. I glanced back at Ellie, her expression a mix of hurt and determination, and my stomach twisted. The rest of the party was a blur of small talk and clinking glasses. Victoria kept me close, her arm a subtle claim, while I felt Ellie's gaze from across the room. I excused myself to the restroom, needing air, needing space. In the marble-tiled bathroom, I splashed water on my face, staring at the stranger in the mirror. The emerald gown, the perfect makeup, it wasn't me. I was the girl in ripped jeans, laughing with Ellie in dive bars, not this polished doll. My phone buzzed. "Ellie, meet me outside." 5 minutes. I shouldn't have gone, but my feet moved anyway. Outside, the Boston night was crisp, the city lights a distant hum. Ellie leaned against a street lamp, her breath visible in the cold. "You look like you're drowning," she said softly. "I'm fine," I lied, hugging my arms against the chill. "You can't keep doing this, Ellie. You're making it harder." "Good," she said, stepping closer. "It should be hard. You're throwing away who you are for her." "I'm saving my family," I said, my voice cracking. "You don't know what it's like, watching my mom fade, knowing my brother's dreams are slipping away." "I do know," she said, her eyes softening. "I lost my dad last year. I get sacrifice. But this? Marrying someone you don't love? That's not you, Mia." Her words cut deep, unearthing truths I'd buried. I thought of Victoria's world, glamorous, empty. Then Ellie's messy real. "I don't know how to fix this," I admitted, tears stinging my eyes. "Then let me help," she said, her hand brushing mine. "I've saved some money in Paris. It's not much, but we could figure something out. Together." I laughed bitterly. "Your artist gigs won't cover hospital bills, Ellie." Maybe not, she said, unfazed. But I'm here. I'm fighting. Where's Victoria when it's not about her image? I didn't answer because I didn't know. Victoria was generous, but it was transactional. Ellie was reckless, but she was home. Before I could speak, a car pulled up, Victoria's driver. Miss Carter, he said, Ms. Langston requests your return. Ellie's jaw tightened. Go back to your cage, she said, her voice low. But I'm not leaving Boston until you see the truth. I walked away, her words burning. Back inside, Victoria was all smiles, but her eyes were sharp. Your friend seems intense, she said, handing me a glass of champagne. Is she going to be a problem? No, I said too quickly. She's just protective. Good, Victoria said, her tone cool. This marriage is a partnership, Mia. Trust is non-negotiable. I nodded, but doubt not at me. That night, in the guest suite, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Ellie's face, hearing her voice. I opened my laptop, searching for options, grants, loans, anything to replace Victoria's deal. But the numbers didn't add up. My mom's treatments were 6 figures, my brother's tuition another burden. I slammed the laptop shut, tears falling. The next day, Victoria took me to a bridal boutique, a whirlwind of silk and lace. She picked a dress, elegant, expensive, not me. You'll be stunning, she said, her smile practiced. I felt like a mannequin, posed for her vision. My phone stayed silent. Ellie hadn't texted since last night. Part of me hoped she'd given up. Part of me prayed she hadn't. That evening, Victoria had a business dinner, leaving me alone in the mansion. I wandered the halls, the silence oppressive. Then the doorbell rang. My heart leapt, Ellie. I opened the door, and there she was, holding a small canvas, her eyes red-rimmed. I painted this for you, she said, handing it to me. It was us, 2 figures under a starry sky, hands intertwined. Simple, raw, beautiful. This is who we are, she said. Not her world. Ours. I clutched the canvas, my throat tight. Ellie, I can't. You can, she said, stepping inside. You just have to choose. The canvas trembled in my hands, Ellie's painting a mirror to a life I'd tried to forget. The mansion's sterile air felt suffocating, her presence the only warmth in the room. You can't just show up like this, I said, my voice breaking, and expect me to unravel everything. I'm not asking you to unravel, Ellie said, her dark eyes steady. I'm asking you to remember who you are. She stepped closer, the familiar scent of her lavender shampoo pulling me back to nights in her tiny apartment, where love was enough. But it wasn't anymore. Ellie, my mom's dying, I said, setting the canvas on a table, my fingers lingering on its edges. My brother's future is on me. You think a painting fixes that? No, she said, her voice soft but firm. But pretending you're someone you're not won't fix it either. You're not Victoria's, Mia. You're mine. Her words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. I wanted to fall into her, to let her arms erase the weight of my choices. But the reality of hospital bills, of my brother's hopeful eyes, anchored me. I have to do this, I said, turning away. Please go. She didn't move. I'm staying in Boston, she said. I'm at the Harbor Inn, room 312. When you're ready to fight for yourself, I'll be there. She left, the door clicking shut like a gavel. I sank onto the couch, the canvas staring at me, a cruel reminder of what I'd lost. My phone buzzed, Victoria, saying she'd be home late. I felt like a guest in her world, a role I was playing until the contract ended. But Ellie's world, our world, wasn't perfect either. It was dreams and struggle, love and risk. The next morning, Victoria was all business, briefing me on our wedding timeline over breakfast. We'll announce it publicly next week, she said, sipping coffee. The press loves a good love story. We'll give them one. I nodded, my stomach churning. What if I'm not ready? I asked, the words slipping out. Her green eyes flicked up, sharp. You signed the contract, Mia. Your family's taken care of. That's what you wanted, right? Right, I said, but the word felt hollow. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine, cool and steady. You're doing the right thing, she said. You'll see. I spent the day in a daze, fittings and meetings blending together. Victoria's world was a machine, efficient, glittering, soulless. By afternoon, I couldn't breathe. I told her driver I needed air and walked to a nearby park, the canvas tucked under my arm. I sat on a bench, staring at Ellie's painting, the two figures under the stars. I missed that version of me, free, reckless, hers. My phone rang, my brother, Jake. Mia, you okay? He asked, his voice bright but worried. Mom's doing better today. She asked about you. I'm fine. I lied, my throat tight. How's MIT? Awesome, but Mia, I heard about the marriage thing. From Ellie. You don't have to do this for us. I froze. She told you. Yeah. She called, said you're sacrificing too much. Mia, I can get loans, scholarships. We'll figure it out. Jake, you're 18? I said, my voice sharp. You shouldn't have to figure it out. That's my job. But not like this, he said. Mom would hate it if she knew. I hung up, tears blurring the canvas. Jake's words, Ellie's painting, Victoria's contract, they clashed in my head, a storm I couldn't navigate. I wandered Boston streets, ending up outside the Harbor Inn. Room 312. I stood there, frozen, my finger hovering over the buzzer. I didn't press it. Instead, I walked away, the canvas heavy in my arms. That night, Victoria took me to a charity gala, another performance. I wore a sapphire dress, smiled for photos, played the doting fiancé. But my eyes kept scanning the crowd, half expecting Ellie to appear. She didn't. When we got back to the mansion, Victoria poured us wine, her demeanor softer. You've been distant, she said, sitting beside me. Talk to me. I hesitated, Ellie's words, a cage, echoing. This is a lot, I admitted. The contract, the wedding, it feels like I'm losing myself. Victoria's face softened, but there was an edge to it. You're gaining security, Mia. For your family. For you. Isn't that worth it? I didn't answer. She leaned in, her lips brushing my cheek, a gesture meant to comfort, but feeling like a claim. I pulled back, mumbling an excuse, and fled to my room. Alone, I opened the canvas again, tracing the painted stars. I texted Ellie. I need time. Her reply was instant. I'm here. Always. The days blurred into a haze of wedding plans and Victoria's world. Dress fittings, venue tours, media briefings. Every moment was choreographed, a performance I was slipping in. Ellie's text, I'm here. Always, sat unanswered in my phone, a quiet rebellion against the life I was building. I wanted to reply, to run to her, but the weight of my choice kept me rooted. Victoria noticed my distance. Over breakfast, her eyes lingered on me, sharp and searching. You're distracted, she said, cutting her grapefruit with precision. Is it your friend from the party? No. I lied, my fork frozen midair. Just nerves. Big changes. She nodded, but her smile was tight. You'll adjust, Mia. This life suits you more than you think. I doubted that. Her mansion, her galas, her world, it was a beautiful cage, but a cage nonetheless. I thought of Ellie's painting, hidden in my room, a reminder of a life where I felt alive. That afternoon, I slipped away, telling Victoria's driver I was visiting a cafe to clear my head. Instead, I took a cab to the Harbor Inn. Ellie opened the door to room 312, her face lighting up, then softening with worry. Mia, she said, pulling me inside. The room was small, cluttered with sketchbooks and paint tubes, a slice of her chaos. You okay? No, I admitted, sinking onto the bed. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. She sat beside me, her hand resting near mine, not touching but close enough to feel her warmth. You're doing what you think is right, she said, but it's killing you. I looked at her, those dark eyes that always saw too much. I can't let my family down, Ellie. You don't know how bad it is, Mom's treatments, Jake's tuition. Victoria's deal is the only way. There's always another way, she said, her voice fierce. I've been researching crowdfunding, medical grants, scholarships. I know it's not enough yet, but we could try. Try. I laughed, bitter. Ellie, your optimism can't pay 6 figures. Maybe not, she said, undeterred. But I'm not giving up. And you shouldn't either. She pulled out a laptop, showing me pages of grant applications, charity programs, even a crowdfunding draft she'd started for my mom. It was messy, incomplete, but it was Ellie fighting, always fighting. I felt a crack in my resolve, a flicker of hope I hadn't allowed myself. I don't deserve you, I whispered, tears spilling. You deserve everything, she said, her hand finally finding mine. Her touch was a spark, reigniting something I'd buried. I leaned into her, our foreheads touching, the world shrinking to just us. But reality crashed back. My phone buzzed, Victoria, asking where I was. I pulled away, guilt flooding me. I have to go, I said, standing. She'll suspect something. Let her, Ellie said, her voice low. You're not her prisoner. I left, her words echoing. Back at the mansion, Victoria was waiting, her expression unreadable. You were gone a while, she said, pouring wine. Care to share? Just needed air, I said, avoiding her eyes. She didn't press, but the air between us shifted, a subtle tension. That night, I dreamed of Ellie, of running through Central Park, free. I woke with a start, my heart racing, Victoria's contract looming like a shadow. The next day, Victoria took me to meet her lawyer, finalizing wedding details. The contract was ironclad, my family's debts cleared, but my life tethered to hers for a year. I signed, my hand shaking, Ellie's crowdfunding draft flashing in my mind. Was there another way? I didn't know, but the pen felt heavier than ever. That evening, I found a package at the mansion's gate, another of Ellie's paintings, this one of me alone, standing under a stormy sky, my face fierce. A note was tucked inside. You're stronger than you know. Choose you. I hid it before Victoria could see, my heart pounding. The wedding was a week away. Victoria's team planned every detail, but I felt like a ghost in my own life. I texted Ellie, I'm trying to find a way. Don't give up on me. Her reply was simple. Never. I started researching late at night when Victoria was asleep. Grants, loans, charities. Ellie was right. There were options, slim but real. I contacted a nonprofit for medical aid, filled out forms, my hands shaking with hope and fear. It wasn't enough yet, but it was a start. Then Victoria caught me. She stood in the doorway, her eyes cold. Late night work, she asked, glancing at my laptop, open to a grant application. Just exploring options, I said, my voice small. Her smile was thin. Don't forget our deal, Mia. I'm counting on you. Victoria's words hung in the air, a quiet threat wrapped in silk. I closed my laptop, my heart racing, her gaze pinning me like a butterfly to a board. I haven't forgotten, I said, forcing calm. I'm just thorough. She nodded, but her eyes didn't soften. Good, she said, turning away. We have a rehearsal dinner tomorrow. Be ready. The door clicked shut, and I exhaled, the room feeling smaller, her presence a weight I couldn't shake. I stared at the screen, the grant application half filled. It was a long shot, months of processing, no guarantees. Ellie's hope felt like a candle in a storm, flickering but stubborn. I texted her. Victoria's suspicious. I'm trying, but it's hard. Her reply came fast. You're not alone. Meet me tomorrow, noon, same park. I shouldn't have agreed, but I did. The next morning, Victoria was all charm, guiding me through wedding details with her team. The rehearsal dinner was at a waterfront restaurant, another stage for our performance. I smiled, nodded, but my mind was on Ellie, on the park, on the life I might still reclaim. At noon, I slipped away, telling Victoria's driver I needed a walk. The park was quiet, the autumn leaves crunching underfoot. Ellie was there, sitting on a bench, sketching. She looked up, her smile soft but fierce. "You came," she said, closing her sketchbook. "I shouldn't have," I said, sitting beside her. "Victoria's watching me. She knows something's up." "Then let her know," Ellie said, her voice steady. "You don't owe her your life, Mia. You sign a contract, not a death sentence." I laughed, a brittle sound. "You make it sound so easy. If I break this, my family's done. Mom's treatments, Jake's school, gone." Ellie took my hand, her touch grounding me. "I've got leads," she said. "A medical charity in New York, a scholarship for Jake. I sent them your info. It's not a sure thing, but it's real." I stared at her, hope and fear warring inside me. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. "You could walk away, live your life." "Because I love you," she said simply, her eyes locked on mine. "And I know you love me too." I did. God, I did. But love wasn't a check I could cash. I pulled my hand back, standing. "I need to get back. The rehearsal dinner's tonight." Ellie's face fell, but she nodded. "I'll be here," she said. "Whenever you're ready." The rehearsal dinner was a glittering affair, all crystal and candlelight. Victoria was radiant, her arm around me, toasting our future to a room of strangers. I played my part, but every smile felt like a betrayal. My phone buzzed under the table. Ellie, sending a link to a charity that could cover Mom's treatments. I hid the screen, my heart pounding. After dinner, Victoria pulled me aside, her expression cool. "You're distracted again," she said. "Is it her?" I froze, my mouth dry.
No, primer lead.
"Just wedding stress." She studied me, her eyes like a hawk's. "I chose you because you're honest, Mia. Don't make me regret it." I nodded, my stomach twisting. That night, I lay awake, Ellie's link open on my phone. The charity could help, but it required time, paperwork, proof, things I didn't have with the wedding days away. I emailed them anyway, my fingers trembling, a small act of defiance. The next day, Victoria took me to a press conference announcing our engagement to the world. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and I stood beside her, a perfect smile plastered on my face. But inside, I was unraveling. Ellie's words, her painting, her hope, they were cracks in the facade I'd built. That afternoon, I snuck away again, meeting Ellie at a coffee shop. She looked tired, her hair messy, but her eyes were bright. "The charity responded," she said, showing me an email. "They're interested, Mia. They want to meet." My heart leapt, then sank. "The wedding's in 3 days," I said. "I can't just walk away." "You can," she said, leaning closer. "You're stronger than you think." I wanted to believe her, but fear clawed at me. We sat in silence, the coffee shop's hum a backdrop to my indecision. Then my phone rang. "Jake." "Mia, Mom's awake," he said, his voice shaking. "She knows about the deal. She's begging you not to do it." Tears stung my eyes. "She needs the money, Jake. She needs you happy," he said. "We'll find another way. I swear." I hung up, Ellie's hand on mine. "You're not alone," she said again. And for the first time, I believed her. Jake's words echoed in my head, a lifeline I didn't know I needed. Ellie sat across from me in the coffee shop, her hand still on mine, her eyes steady with hope. For the first time in weeks, I felt a spark of possibility, fragile but real. But the wedding was 2 days away, and Victoria's world was closing in. "I have to meet this charity," I said, my voice shaky. "But if it falls through, Ellie, I'm back to square one." "It won't," she said, squeezing my hand. "And if it does, we'll keep fighting. Together." I nodded, but fear gnawed at me. Victoria wasn't just a contract. She was a force, her influence everywhere, her driver outside, her name on my phone, her wealth in my family's future. I left Ellie with a promise to call and returned to the mansion, my mind racing. Victoria was in her study, papers spread across her desk. She looked up, her smile tight. "Productive walk?" she asked, her tone probing. "Yeah," I said, avoiding her eyes. "Just needed to think." She stood, crossing the room, her presence commanding. "Mia, I need you focused. The wedding's almost here. My investors, my reputation, they're counting on us." "I know," I said, my throat tight. Her hand brushed my shoulder, a gesture meant to reassure but feeling like a chain. I excused myself, retreating to my room, where Ellie's painting waited. I traced the stormy sky, the fierce Mia she'd painted. I wanted to be her again. That night, I called a charity, my voice low, the door locked. They were optimistic. Mom's case qualified for emergency funding, but it needed an in-person meeting, medical records, proof. I spent hours gathering documents, emailing Jake for help. He sent what he could, his texts full of encouragement. "You got this, Mia. Mom believes in you." The next morning, I told Victoria I was visiting a friend, a half-truth that burned my tongue. She nodded, distracted by a call, and I took a cab to the charity's Boston office. Ellie met me there, her presence a quiet strength. The meeting was grueling, forms, questions, timelines, but they promised a decision within days. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was hope. Back at the mansion, Victoria was waiting, her eyes cold. "You've been busy," she said, holding up her phone. A photo, me and Ellie, leaving the charity office. Her driver had followed me. My stomach dropped. "Care to explain?" she asked, her voice like ice. "I was exploring options," I said, my voice steady despite the panic. "For my mom. I didn't want to bother you." Her laugh was sharp. "Bother me? Mia, you're my fiancé. Your actions reflect on me." "Who's she to you?" "An old friend," I said, the lie bitter. "She's helping with my mom's situation." Victoria stepped closer, her eyes searching. "I've been generous, Mia. I've given your family everything. Don't make me question your loyalty." "I'm not," I said, my heart pounding.
I'm grateful.
"I'm just trying to do right by everyone." She studied me, then nodded. "Get some rest. Tomorrow's the final fitting." Her tone was final, a warning. I barely slept, Ellie's texts my only anchor. "You're doing the right thing. I'm proud of you." The next day, the wedding dress felt like a shroud, its lace suffocating. Victoria was all smiles for the seamstress, but her eyes watched me, calculating. I felt like a pawn in her game, my family's future the prize. That afternoon, the charity called. They'd approved partial funding, enough for Mom's next round of treatments, with more possible later. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. I texted Ellie, my hand shaking. "It's happening. I might not have to do this." Her reply was instant. "I'm coming to you. Tonight." I didn't stop her. That evening, as Victoria hosted a pre-wedding dinner, Ellie slipped into the mansion's garden, where I met her under the cover of dusk. "You did it," she whispered, pulling me into a hug. Her warmth was everything I'd missed. "Not yet," I said, clinging to her. "It's not enough for Jake's tuition, and Victoria's not going to let me go easily." "Then we'll fight her," Ellie said, her voice fierce. "Together." We stood there, hidden by roses, the weight of tomorrow pressing down. The wedding was hours away, and I had to choose, break the contract and risk everything, or marry Victoria and lose myself. The garden's roses glowed under the moonlight, their petals a soft contrast to the storm inside me. Ellie's arms were a haven, but the wedding loomed like a guillotine. Tomorrow, I'd stand in a church, in a dress I didn't choose, promising a life I didn't want. The charity's partial funding was a lifeline, but it wasn't enough, not yet. "We can't stay here," I whispered, pulling back from Ellie. "Victoria's driver saw us today. She's watching." "Then let's go," Ellie said, her eyes blazing. Right now. We'll figure it out. Your mom, Jake, everything. I wanted to run, to disappear into the night with her. But the contract, my family's future, held me like chains. I can't, I said, tears falling. If I break the deal, Victoria could sue. We'd lose everything. Ellie's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Then we do this smart. Meet me tomorrow, before the wedding. I'll have a plan. I didn't ask what. I just nodded, clinging to her promise. We parted, her silhouette fading into the dark. Back in the mansion, I hid her painting, my heart pounding. Victoria was in her study, her voice sharp on a call. I slipped into my room, locking the door, and spent the night on my laptop, researching legal loopholes, anything to break the contract without losing it all. Morning came too fast. The wedding was at noon, a grand affair at a historic Boston church. Victoria's team swarmed me. Hair, makeup, the dress. I was a doll, molded for her vision. She smiled, radiant in her tailored suit, but her eyes were cold, watching. You're stunning, she said, adjusting my veil. This is our day. I nodded, my throat tight. My phone was hidden in my clutch, Ellie's last text burning in my mind. 11 a.m., church courtyard. Trust me. I didn't know her plan, but it was all I had. At the church, the organ hummed, guests filling the pews. I stood in a side room, the dress heavy, my heart heavier. Victoria was greeting guests, her laugh polished but distant. I slipped out, claiming I needed air, and ran to the courtyard. Ellie was there, her black jeans and jacket a stark contrast to the wedding's opulence. She held a folder, her face fierce. Here, she said, handing it to me. Legal aid papers. A lawyer I found. She says the contract's exploitative. You can fight it, Mia. And the charity's expediting more funds. Jake's helping with scholarship apps. I scanned the papers, my hands shaking. It was a chance, slim but real. What if it's not enough? I asked, my voice breaking. Then we keep fighting, she said, stepping closer. But you don't have to marry her. You're free.
Free.
The word hit like a wave. I thought of Mom, her frail hands, her plea for my happiness. Of Jake, his belief in me. Of Ellie, who'd crossed an ocean to fight for us. I clutched the folder, tears falling. I have to tell her, I said.
Now.
Ellie nodded, her hand brushing mine. I'm right here. I walked back inside, the folder hidden in my dress. Victoria was at the altar, her smile faltering as she saw me. Mia, it's time, she said, her voice low. I can't, I said, my voice steady despite the fear. I'm not marrying you, Victoria.
I'm sorry.
The church went silent, guests murmuring. Victoria's face hardened. You're breaking the contract, she said, her voice like steel. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, holding up the folder. But I have options. And I choose me. She stepped closer, her eyes blazing. You think you can walk away? I own this deal. You don't own me, I said, my voice rising. I'm done. I turned, walking down the aisle, past shocked faces, Ellie waiting at the door. Victoria didn't follow, but her voice echoed. You'll pay for this, Mia. Outside, Ellie pulled me into a hug, the world spinning. You did it, she whispered. Not yet, I said, clinging to her. But I'm starting. We took a cab to the charity office, then to New York, where Mom and Jake waited. The legal fight was just beginning. Victoria's lawyers were ruthless, but the charity came through, covering Mom's treatments. Jake got a scholarship, his grin brighter than ever. Ellie and I moved into a tiny Brooklyn apartment, her paintings on the walls, our love the foundation. It wasn't easy, bills, battles, uncertainty, but it was ours. And for the first time, I was free, not just to survive, but to live.